I died in the stupidest way possible. Not heroic, not dramatic, just stupid. 1 second I was standing on the marble staircase at my engagement party, in a dress I'd spent half my savings on, staring at the man I thought I loved and the friend I thought I trusted. The next second, my heel slipped, my body tipped backwards, and I was falling. The last thing I saw was her big, soft eyes glistening with fake tears, clutching my fiancé's sleeve as if she were the victim. I, Lin Tran, 26 years old, loyal to a fault, died because I trusted the wrong people. The world thought my was gentle, sweet, innocent. Like green tea, they said, refreshing, pure, soothing. What they didn't know was that she was the kind of green tea that's all perfume and poison. A girl who made herself look weak so people would protect her. A girl who made other women look crazy so men would adore her. She was the one who whispered little lies into my fiancé's ear. The one who pretended to trip and fall into his arms. The one who told everyone she admired me while stealing everything that was mine. When I saw her and Ethan together that night, her trembling in his arms, him stroking her hair, saying, "Don't cry, it's not your fault," something inside me finally snapped. We shouted. We fought. He tried to calm me down. She tried to pull him behind her, as if she were the one in danger. I remember shoving her hand away from his chest. I remember her eyes flashing with something sharp and cold. I remember her fingers catching my wrist, the brief pressure, the sudden imbalance. And then I was falling. The world spun. My head cracked against the stairs, pain exploding like fireworks behind my eyes. People screamed. Music stopped. My vision blurred. I don't know if it was the blood loss or my own stupidity, but my last thought was, I should have exposed her a long time ago. Darkness swallowed me. Then a familiar sound pulled me back. The soft buzz of an old air conditioner. The distant honking of scooters in the street. The faint hum of my neighbor's terrible karaoke. My eyes opened. I stared at the ceiling. My ceiling. The ugly grey water stain in the corner. The glow-in-the-dark stars I stuck up there in college. The cheap plastic fan spinning lazily above my head. I shot upright with a gasp. My chest heaved. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, my fingers shaking, and checked the date. 4 years earlier. It was the exact day my first transferred into my department at work. I stared at the screen so long my eyes watered. Then I laughed, a raw, hysterical sound that scared even me. Are you kidding me? I whispered. I came back. Reborn. Regressed. Sent back in time. Call it whatever you want. All I knew was that fate had just handed me something rare, a second chance. In my first life, I let my wear her mask of innocence until it destroyed me. In this life, I was going to rip that mask off. I took a long, steadying breath and looked at myself in the mirror. Same long black hair. Same soft face people always said looked too trusting. Same tired brown eyes. Not anymore, I thought. I smiled at my reflection, but it wasn't my old smile. This one was sharper. Okay, Lynn, I told myself. Round 2. Let's not die stupid this time. Work looked exactly the same as I remembered it. The greyish carpets. The smell of burnt coffee. The chatter in the open office. The poster on the wall that said, "We are a family here." A lie I had swallowed for years. My desk was still in the corner, piled with files and sticky notes. My old co-workers greeted me with the same half-busy smiles, the same casual small talk. I knew what was coming next. In my first life, Mai arrived that afternoon. She walked in, small and delicate, hugging a folder to her chest like a shield. Her voice was soft, her smile shy. She stumbled over simple things and apologized too much, and people instantly wanted to protect her. Including me. That was the day I volunteered to show her around. That was the day I invited her into my world. This time, I was waiting. When the HR manager walked in with her, I was already standing near the door. "Everyone, this is my," HR said. "She's transferring from the Hanoi branch. Please help her settle in." She gave a timid bow. "I'm so sorry to bother everyone. I'll try my best. Please take care of me." The men near the front practically melted. One of them, David, smiled. "We definitely will." I could practically see the same story starting again, only now I knew how it ended. Mai's gaze swept the room, looking for a target. Our eyes met. She looked a little startled that I was already watching her. Then she gave me a tiny, gentle smile. Time to flip the script. I stepped forward first. "Hi, I'm Lynn," I said warmly. "We're in the same team. I'll show you around." Her shoulders relaxed. "Really? Thank you so much, Lynn." In my past life, this was when I started protecting her. Covering for her mistakes. Explaining everything step by step. Letting her cling to me. Not today. We walked through the office together, as I pointed out the departments. She played her part perfectly, asking careful questions, pretending to be overwhelmed, thanking me too many times. At the end of the little tour, I stopped near the break room where a couple of co-workers were chatting. I raised my voice, just enough for them to hear. "So Mai," I said, smiling kindly, "I heard you're really confident about joining next week's marketing pitch. That's great. We need someone bold." Her eyes widened. She had no idea there even was a pitch next week. In my first life, she learned about it later, then slid herself in just in time to take partial credit. Now, those nearby co-workers turned to look at her with interest. "Wow, really?" one of them said. "You're joining the pitch already. That's ambitious." Another whistled. "New girl's confident." Mai stammered, I didn't. I mean." I tilted my head, keeping my expression innocent. "Oh, did I misunderstand?" I asked sweetly. "Sorry, I thought you were really eager to jump in. My mistake." The damage was already done. A seed was planted. She wasn't the shy, helpless new girl anymore. She was ambitious. Confident. Competitive. Exactly the opposite of the image she liked to build. Her fingers tightened around her folder. She forced a shy laugh. "I just want to help however I can." "Perfect," I said. "We'll all be watching." As we walked away, I saw the faint crack in her mask. Strike one, I thought. The next big variable in my life was Ethan. Tall, polished, charming. Successful enough to be considered a catch. In my first life, I let myself be caught like a fish on a line. I mistook his attention for safety, his money for stability, his promises for love. We weren't engaged yet in this timeline, but we were already dating. We had been together for about 6 months. At this point in my past life, I was falling fast. Now, I saw him clearly. The first time he came into the office that week, he walked in like he owned the building. Technically, he didn't, but he was one of the major clients for our company, and he liked the power that gave him. His eyes found me immediately. "There you are," he said with a smile. "I texted you. You didn't respond." "I was busy," I said simply. He blinked, taken aback by how flat my tone was. In my first life, I would have apologized, scrambled to explain, tried to make him feel better. "What's wrong?" he asked, laughing lightly. "Someone steal your lunch or something?" "No," I said. "Ethan, we need to talk." He stiffened just the slightest bit. The hallway suddenly felt quieter, as if the air were listening. Talk, about what? He asked, still trying to sound relaxed. I looked him in the eye. About us. I think we should slow things down. His jaw worked. Slow, what? Why? Because I realized we barely know each other, I said. And I don't want to rush into anything serious if I'm not sure it's right for me. That wasn't the whole truth. The real truth was, I knew exactly what kind of man he was. One who was used to being admired. One who liked being the center of attention. One who cheated when someone more exciting, more fragile, more in need drifted close enough. He didn't know any of that yet, though. In this timeline, he thought I was still his steady, grateful girlfriend. Well, he said, forcing a laugh, this is sudden. I know, I replied calmly. But it's better now than later, right? He stared at me, his pride clearly bruised. Is there someone else? In my first life, I would have rushed to deny it, to reassure him. Instead, I just shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. I turned away before he could say anything else. Behind me, I could feel his frustration simmering. Ethan didn't like losing control. Too bad. I wasn't going to be his backup plan this time. There was one more person whose role in my life I'd underestimated, Damien Le. Our CEO. He was the kind of man people instinctively moved out of the way for. Not because he shouted or threw his power around, but because his presence was sharp. Focused. He noticed things. He remembered details. He rarely wasted words. In my first life, he was a distant figure at the top of the company, someone I admired from afar, but never really interacted with. That changed sooner than I expected. It started with a meeting. The week after I joined, our team gathered in the conference room for a brainstorming session about the upcoming marketing pitch. In my first life, I stayed quiet, let my manager talk, filled in the gaps later, and I used that silence to slide herself into the spotlight over time. Now, I'd already decided that this second chance wasn't just about revenge. It was about myself. So when the room went quiet and our manager asked, "Any ideas?" I sat up straighter. "Yes," I said, and plugged in my laptop. I laid out everything I remembered from the future, what campaigns had worked, what audiences responded to, what formats went viral, which details clients cared about most. I couldn't say I saw this happen already, so I backed it with data, logic, and research. I talked with clarity. Confidence. Focus. The room listened. Even Damien, who had quietly joined the meeting halfway through, leaned back in his chair, eyes pinned on me. I hadn't noticed him slip in until his low voice cut through my presentation. "Why this strategy instead of the one used by our competitor 6 months ago?" he asked. I was ready. "Because their numbers only spiked short-term," I answered. "Engagement dropped as soon as the campaign ended. Our version builds long-term loyalty and repeat traffic." He held my gaze for a moment, then gave a small nod. "Continue." When I finished, the room was quiet again, but in a different way. Not the "no one has anything to say" quiet. The "everyone's processing what they just saw" quiet. Finally, our manager clapped. "This is solid, Lynn." Someone muttered, "When did she get so good?" I heard Mai, sitting nearby, let out a little laugh that was meant to sound friendly but came out strained. After the meeting, as people began to file out, I was gathering my things when I heard Damien's voice again. "Lynn," he said. "Walk with me." Every head in the room turned. Including Mai's. Her eyes were burning holes in the side of my face. I followed Damien down the hallway to his office. My heart thudded, but not in the star-struck way of my old self. This time, it was something else, anticipation, maybe. Curiosity. He closed the door behind us. "You've grown," he said simply. "Excuse me," I replied, caught off guard. "Your presentation. Your way of thinking. It wasn't like this before." There was no accusation in his tone, just observation. Or maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. I smiled faintly. Maybe both. He studied me for a moment, then gestured for me to sit. "I want you to lead the pitch next week," he said. My heartbeat jumped. In my first life, I had done most of the work, but my manager had presented, and I had somehow ended up standing beside him, chiming in just enough to steal some credit. "Not this time." "Are you sure?" I asked, though I already knew my answer. "Yes," he said. "You see the bigger picture. You're also clearly prepared." Prepared? That was one way to put it. "All right," I said. "I'll do it." He nodded. "Good. Don't disappoint me." "I don't plan to," I replied. As I left his office, I happened to pass by the break room. Mai was there, stirring sugar into her coffee with unnecessary intensity. When she saw me, her expression shifted immediately, worry, then relief, then a small, trembling smile. "Lynn," she said softly. I saw you went into the CEO's office. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. "He just asked me to lead the pitch next week." Her fingers froze around the coffee cup. Oh, wow," she whispered. "Congratulations. You really deserve it." "Thanks," I said. I smiled at her, a gentle, harmless smile. "I'll give it my best." She smiled back. But for the first time, I saw it clearly. The tightness at the edge of her lips. The way her eyes didn't fully crinkle. The small flare of jealousy she couldn't hide fast enough. She had found her favorite type of target in my first life, a woman who worked hard, doubted herself, and always gave other people the benefit of the doubt. This time, she had miscalculated. Because I remembered everything. It didn't take long for her to make her first real move. 2 days later, my manager burst into the office with a pale face. "Who sent these files to the client?" he demanded, holding up a tablet. Everyone looked up. "What files?" I asked. "The raw concept documents. The ones marked internal only." His voice was sharp. "They weren't supposed to see any of this yet. It could ruin the pitch." In my first life, I had panicked. I had checked my outbox and found the email allegedly sent from my account. I had no proof that I wasn't the one who did it. I'd taken the blame. Now, I just stayed very, very calm. "I didn't send anything," I said. "You're the only one who had access," he replied. "Not exactly," I said lightly. Over the past week, I'd done something I never did in my first life. I prepared to be sabotaged. I had saved all my key files in a shared drive with detailed logs. I had named them with subtle watermarks. I had turned on email activity tracking. And I had recorded a short clip of the meeting where access was assigned. "Give me 10 minutes," I said. I pulled up my laptop, connected it to the meeting room screen, and opened the logs. "Here," I said, pointing to the screen. "You gave me access on Monday. And on Tuesday, additional access was granted. Not by me." Mai was at her desk, watching with her sweetest concerned expression. "Maybe there was a system error," she offered gently. "That happens sometimes, right?" I clicked another tab. "Here's the security record," I said. The files were downloaded from my folder using the IP address assigned to Mai's computer. The room went still. I kept my tone neutral. "We had a meeting when I showed you the files, remember? I asked my manager. I actually recorded part of it because I didn't want to miss any instructions. Do you mind if we play it? He blinked, thrown off. You recorded it? Yes, I said. Just audio. I hit play. The speakers filled with our voices from that day. My manager assigning me the task. Me confirming I'd keep the files internal. My's voice chiming in softly in the background. I don't need access. I don't want to mess anything up. My manager had nodded and said, you can sit this one out, My. Which meant she wasn't supposed to even touch those files. Now, the proof echoed through the office. My co-workers exchanged glances. Some of them looked uncomfortable. Others looked shocked. My's face went white. She let out a shaky laugh. I don't know how that happened. Maybe I clicked the wrong. My manager cut in, his voice cold now. Why did you download the files and then email them to the client from Lynn's account? I didn't mean, she started, voice cracking. Tears pooled in her eyes, trembling at the edges like they always did. In my first life, I'd have stepped in to protect her. To say, it was partly my fault. To say, she's new. Don't be too hard on her. This time, I stayed quiet. My manager glared at her. We'll let HR handle this, he said tightly. Until then, stay away from the pitch materials. When he walked away, the room followed his lead, slowly drifting back to their desks. I packed up my laptop. As I headed back to my seat, My caught my wrist. Lynn, she whispered, eyes glossy. Why did you do that? I thought we were friends. I met her gaze and spoke softly enough that only she could hear. We were friends, I said. You just didn't value it. Something flickered in her expression. The softness vanished for a split second, replaced by something sharp. Then it was gone, and she looked fragile again. I just wanted to help, she murmured. I didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing, I said calmly. You just thought I'd cover for you again. I gently pulled my wrist away. Strike two. Ethan didn't show up at the office for a few days. I knew his pattern. When things didn't go his way, he would vanish long enough to make people worry, then return at the perfect moment to regain control. Sure enough, he appeared at my apartment door one evening, holding a massive bouquet of flowers. Lynn, he said, forcing a warm smile. You've been avoiding me. I leaned against the doorway, blocking his view of the inside. I've been busy. With work, he asked. Or, with someone else? I didn't bother answering that. What do you want, Ethan? I asked. He sighed dramatically. Look, I know you said we should slow down, but I don't think you really mean that. You're just scared, right? You don't want to lose something good. I'm not scared, I said. And I don't think this is something good. His expression tightened, the charm on his face cracking just a little. So that's it. You're just going to throw this away. I almost laughed. In my first life, he was the one who threw me away for someone more exciting. Now that I was entertaining the possibility of leaving first, his ego couldn't take it. We're not engaged, I said. We're just dating. And I'm deciding not to date you. It's not that deep. For you maybe, he snapped, then immediately tried to soften his tone. Lynn, come on. Think about this. We have a good thing. Stop overreacting. Ethan, I said quietly, one day, you're going to meet someone who looks weaker than me. Softer than me. Someone who cries more. And you're going to think she needs you more than I do. And you'll choose her. He froze. For a moment, I wondered if some part of him remembered, too. But then he scoffed. You're being ridiculous. Maybe, I said. But I don't want to stick around and find out. I gently nudged the bouquet back toward him. Take these home. Maybe give them to someone who believes your promises. His jaw clenched. Is there another man? He demanded. Is that why you're acting like this? I shrugged again. Maybe. Maybe not. Fine, he bit out. If you want to play games, go ahead. Just don't come running back when reality hits you in the face. He turned on his heel and stormed off, the flowers crumpling a little in his grip. Reality already hit me, I thought, watching him go. It hit my head on marble stairs and killed me. And now I was done pretending not to see it. The day of the pitch arrived faster than I expected. As I stood outside the conference room, holding my laptop, I took a moment to breathe. In my first life, I had been a background character in this moment, someone who worked behind the scenes, whose contributions were invisible. This time, I was front and center. The executive team was already inside. The client was there too, an important one, dressed in a dark blue suit, his expression calm but sharp. Damien sat near the front, watching everything. Just before I walked in, a small, soft voice called my name. Lynn. I turned. Mai stood there in a light blouse and skirt, her eyes shimmering with familiar tears. She looked like she hadn't slept well. Perfect makeup, though. Of course. I know you're upset with me, she said quietly. But, can we talk? We are about to start, I replied. Make it quick. She bit her lip. I really admire you, she whispered. I messed up, and I know it, but I still want to learn from you. I know I don't deserve it, but, could you let me present with you? Just a small part. I want to grow. In my past life, those words would have melted me instantly. I would have thought, she's trying so hard. She wants to improve. She just needs a chance. Now, I heard what she was really saying. Let me be on stage with you so I can share the spotlight. So I can attach myself to your success, like I always do. You want to be on stage with me? I asked softly. She nodded eagerly, hope lighting up her features. Just a little. Please. I'll follow your lead. I smiled. Sure, I said. Come in with me. Surprise flickered in her eyes, then satisfaction quickly followed. She thought she'd won. We walked into the conference room together. I could feel the puzzled glances from my co-workers. Damien's brow lifted slightly, but he didn't say anything. Good morning, I greeted everyone with a confident smile. I'm Lynn Tran, and this is my colleague, Mai. We'll be presenting our campaign proposal today. Mai gave a small bow, her shy smile firmly in place. We began. The first half of the presentation was mine. I walked through the core concept, the visual direction, the narrative arc, the projected engagement numbers. I answered questions clearly, smoothly. The client nodded, occasionally making notes. Then I reached the segment I had quietly shifted in the slides last night. The next part, I said pleasantly, is the detailed analytics breakdown and projected ROI, which Mai will walk you through. I handed her the clicker. Her hand shook as she took it. She hadn't prepared for this part. In my first life, this was my section. She had always avoided numbers, always claimed she wasn't good at math, so people would praise her for trying her best when she messed up. This time, I'd given her exactly what she rarely touched, the technical heart of the pitch. She stared at the slide. One of the main factors she began, then trailed off. Her eyes darted over the screen. The client raised an eyebrow. Silence stretched. Painfully. She looked at me, panic rising in her eyes. I smiled calmly at her. Go on, I said softly enough that the microphone barely picked it up. You wanted to learn, right? Try. She swallowed hard. These numbers here show, She said a percentage wrong. Gave a figure that made no mathematical sense. The confusion on the client's face deepened. This part wasn't just about numbers, it was about understanding the logic behind them. Knowing why we chose this strategy over others. Knowing what each data point meant. Knowledge she never bothered to gain. When she stumbled a third time, the room began to feel heavy with second-hand embarrassment. Damien finally cut in, his voice smooth but firm. Lynn, he said, why don't you explain this part? I nodded. Of course. I stepped forward and gently took the clicker back. As I was saying, I continued, seamlessly picking up where she'd failed, these numbers show not just initial engagement, but sustained interest. We are not aiming for a single spike, we are building a long-term relationship with the customer base. The client relaxed, nodding along again. As I spoke, I could feel my shrinking behind me, her presence fading. Her carefully crafted image of being quiet, but secretly competent, was crumbling. Instead, she looked exactly like what she had always secretly been, unprepared, lazy, and dependent on others. By the time I finished, the energy in the room had shifted completely. The client smiled as he stood. This is impressive, he said. You clearly understand our needs and the long-term market. He shook my hand firmly. We'll move forward with this. Relief and satisfaction flooded me. Damien's applause was slow but steady, his gaze resting on me with something new. Approval, yes, but also interest. When the room started to empty, I unplugged my laptop. Mai stood beside me, pale and trembling. Lynn, she whispered once we were alone, you set me up. You asked to be on stage, I replied mildly. I gave you that chance. You knew I can't handle the analytics, she hissed. The innocent tone vanished, replaced with quiet anger. You made me look stupid in front of everyone. I didn't make you anything, I said. I just stopped carrying you. Her hands curled into fists. You're vindictive, she spat softly. I thought you were nice. I thought you were my friend. I was nice, I said. I was your friend. And look how that turned out for me the first time. She frowned, confused. What? Nothing, I said lightly. You'll understand someday. I walked out before she could respond. Strike 3. Everything happened fast after that. HR called Mai the next day. They'd finished their investigation into the leaked files. The logs, the emails, the IP tracking, it all pointed directly at her. She had accessed restricted files, sent them using my account, and almost damaged an important client relationship. In my first life, that mess had quietly been swept under the rug. I'd taken the blame. My record had a small note about careless handling of internal materials. This time, I watched from my desk as Mai walked out of the HR office with swollen eyes, her face tight. She stormed over to me, ignoring the looks from our co-workers. You ruined me, she whispered furiously. I leaned back in my chair. No, I said calmly. You ruined yourself. I just stopped letting you hide behind me. Her breath hitched. She stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. You think you've won. You think people will always see you as the good one. You're not that special, Lynn. Men like Ethan, men like Damien, they'll always choose someone like me in the end. Girls like you are just stepping stones. Once upon a time, those words would have gutted me. Now, they just sounded sad. I'm not competing with you anymore, I said quietly. You can keep chasing men's sympathy if you want. I'll be over here building a life that doesn't depend on it. As she opened her mouth to spit something else, a new voice cut in. That's enough. We both turned. Damien stood a few steps away, his gaze ice-cold as it settled on my. Her posture crumpled. She hastily lowered her head, trying to pull that fragile act back on. I am sorry, sir, I just. HR will contact you with the final decision, he said. Until then, you are not to approach or harass your colleagues. Is that understood? Her lip trembled. Yes. She fled, her shoulders shaking. I exhaled slowly. Damien looked at me. For a moment, his expression softened. You handled yourself well, he said. Thank you, I replied. Finish your current accounts, he added. I want to move you on to more important projects. A small, genuine smile tugged at my lips. I'd like that. He nodded once and walked away. I watched him go, feeling something unfamiliar. In my first life, I'd spent so much time chasing validation from people who never deserved it that I never noticed the ones who actually saw me. This time, I had no intention of making that mistake. The weeks that followed were the calmest I'd had in years. Without my hovering around me, pretending to be fragile while quietly twisting stories in her favor, the office felt lighter. There was still stress, still deadlines, still office politics, but it was normal, manageable. I focused on my work. I put in effort where it mattered, not in defending myself against lies, but in building something solid. My ideas gained traction. My presentations got better. Co-workers who once overlooked me started asking for my input. At some point, I realized I was laughing more. Sleeping better. When Ethan appeared again, this time at a mutual friends gathering, he tried to act like nothing had changed. He made a few snide comments about my new attitude. He brought a date who looked suspiciously like my, soft-spoken, doe-eyed, quick to cling to his arm whenever he seemed upset. I just smiled and wished them well. The anger I'd carried from my previous life had burned hot at first, but now it felt distant. Like smoke remnants after a fire. I was done chasing people who were never really mine. One evening, as I was packing up to leave the office, someone tapped lightly on my desk. I looked up. Damien stood there, hands in his pockets, tie slightly loosened. He looked less like the intimidating CEO, and more like a man at the end of a long day. Got a minute? He asked. Of course, I said, sliding my laptop into my bag. We walked down the hallway together, the office growing quieter as more lights clicked off. He stopped near the lobby windows, where the city lights stretched out below us, buildings glowing, cars flowing like rivers of red and white. Congratulations on the client renewal, he said. They specifically mentioned you in the feedback. I blinked. They did. Yes. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Don't look so surprised. I'm just not used to being noticed, I admitted. You should start getting used to it, he replied. You've been doing good work for a long time. You just stopped hiding it. I thought back to my past life, to all the times I'd kept my ideas to myself, stepped aside to let someone else shine, apologized for existing too loudly. I guess I decided I was tired of being small, I said. He studied my face for a moment. Good. We stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city. Then he cleared his throat. Dinner, he asked casually, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. I was going to grab something nearby. Join me. I turned to look at him fully. Is this a work dinner? I asked lightly. No, he said, meeting my gaze without hesitation. Not this time. A small laugh escaped me, soft but real. You're very straightforward. Usually, he said. But I can be patient if you need time. For a moment, the old me, the one who doubted everything, whispered, he's your boss. This is dangerous. What if it goes wrong? But the new me, the one who had watched herself die once already, answered. You've already seen what happens when you live for other people's approval. Just this once, choose what you actually want. I held his gaze and felt a quiet warmth settle in my chest. Dinner sounds good, I said. He smiled, a real one this time, small but unmistakably warm. We left the office together, stepping into the cool night air. As we walked down the street side by side, passing glowing storefronts and the soft glow of street lamps, I realized something important. Rebirth hadn't been given to me just so I could destroy someone else. It had been given to me so I could rebuild myself. Exposing tearing off her mask, letting everyone see the ugly truth beneath, that brought a certain satisfaction, yes. It was justice. It was closure. But the real victory wasn't in watching her fall. It was in refusing to fall with her this time. I had broken away from the patterns that killed me, literally, the first time around. I had stopped clinging to the wrong people. I had learned to step into my own light instead of dimming it for someone else. The world still spun. People still gossiped. New problems would surely appear. But now, I knew something I hadn't known before. I could face them. Because I wasn't the same foolish girl who died on a staircase begging the wrong man to choose her. I was the woman who came back, exposed a fake green tea angel, and slapped the lies right off her face, without lifting a hand. And more importantly, I was the woman who finally chose herself. As Damien opened the restaurant door for me and I stepped inside, surrounded by warm light and the low hum of conversation, I felt it clearly. This wasn't just a second chance. It was my real beginning.